All right, so welcome to this week's episode of the Stand Up Leaders YouTube video. And today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm interviewing somebody that I met for the first time in 2024 and was very impressed with. So I wanted to bring her on and share. So before we introduce Meagan, let's just say again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, just go down below, click subscribe, click the little bell at the side of it so you get notifications as we go live. And let's start today's session. So Meagan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So Meagan, tell the listeners a little bit about more about you. Like, who are you? What do you do? And then what's your sort of passions? And why do you think I selected you to come on this channel?
You had no one else. No. No, I have so many things. I do so many things. The 9 to 5, I work at Disney with you, managing construction projects. And of course, there's a people aspect to that. It's Disney. There's always a people aspect. Mm-hmm. I've been in construction for, I'm definitely going to date myself here, like 16 years.
Okay.
Started my career back in New York City, made it out to the West Coast. And then outside of the 9 to 5, I have my own alternative health and wellness company where I focus entirely on the human aspect of things. Although I do coaching with everything from dietary changes and lifestyle adjustments to resume editing and creating and coaching on interviews. So it still kind of permeates through to, we'd say, the other side of things. Yeah. But yeah, I think the easiest way to sum myself up is a continual growth seeker. Anytime I find out about something, I'm like, oh, I have to try it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, to be honest, that's why, again, you may not know this, but that's why I obviously connected with you when we had those 2-day training sessions in Disneyland there, where we came over to launch a new program, and I could see something within you and the way you were that resonated with me, right? And so you're a continuous learner. So tell me, obviously you've had a good career to date. You've still got a long way ahead of you, and you're doing other things. What are some of the challenges that you've faced in your sort of leadership journey, or that you're facing now that others may resonate with?
Yeah, I mean, personally, being in New York City as a female, starting in construction, I had almost everything against me. I was young, I was not male, I had a long commute, so I had to leave at certain times in order to make the train, everything, any aspect. And yeah. It was just one of those, well, that doesn't fit. Not that that's ever been something that I've not come across, but it didn't make it easy. I was continuously having to be better than everyone else just to meet that same minimum. And it's funny, I was thinking this morning, like, oh, what am I going to talk about? And I'm going, thank you to everyone who told me I couldn't, because that was the greatest motivator. I know not everybody is that way, but for me, it's, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it, just to stick it to them. But I think the biggest lesson that I've learned throughout my career, and I guess the best advice that I can offer someone who's on their journey, I was always told that if you do a great job, you get promoted. And that's not true. If you know your stuff and you crush your work and you're able to run through things quickly, all you do is get more work. You don't actually get promoted. It's when you're able to inspire others to do a great job and you're able to listen and you're able to respond instead of react, that's when you end up seeing that growth, seeing that promotion, getting to the aspect where inevitably you're managing people and you're helping people to get to their next steps instead of just being a cog in a machine.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because there's a definite difference in skill sets between managing processes, right, and leading people. And that would be one thing that I noticed back in England when I was in the car industry. I would see like top salesmen getting promoted to sales managers, and they weren't good leaders of people, right? They could sell cars, they could close, they could do all of that, but they didn't know how to lead people. excuse me. And what happened is that nobody really trained you that, right? And so that's a good awareness. And again, if you're watching and listening now, again, just working hard is not necessarily going to get you the position you want, right? You've got to create those relationships and learn those. Megan mentioned active listening and responding rather than reacting, and all of those sort of communication skills that, again, we sort of teach in our programs, and Megan's gone through one of those, but she already knew it anyway, right? But it's the things that you need to concentrate on. So that's what we talk about in a career growth program, is how do you learn those skills and how do you do it. So you obviously faced those challenges in New York. You then moved to California, right? What was different?
Yeah, I got recruited to Burbank actually, and now I'm down at the parks. But I think the biggest difference, like in New York City, flipping a table on a construction site, yelling at people, like really having honestly just a really bad temper and being driven by anger is completely normal.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really healthy. The biggest thing that was different out here was, and part of it is, working for Disney instead of a construction company, was how much I had to soften, because I went from kind of having to push down that like softer, more gentle, more mothering female aspect because it was weak, to that actually being a strength.
Yeah.
And having to foster that. And I mean, going back to advising people who are listening, I think the coolest way that showed up for me was I got into improv comedy. I had done stand-up comedy back east,
Yeah.
but I got into improv, and with improv you need to respond immediately. Like, you don't have time to sit there and go through 20,000 thoughts on stage and carefully craft what you're saying. So when you're given a situation, you're immediately going to respond with what is right at the surface that you may not realize is sitting there. And I so often saw that my first response was anger. I was like, "Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
oh, we need to do something about this."
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So okay. So it sounds like you had the sort of in your words, the motherly sort of instincts, right? The softer skills, and you had those, and you sort of put those to the back of your mind when you were in New York because you adapted to the environment you were in. Then you came
Oh
to the West Coast, and you sort of, okay, we can do that. So
yeah.
what would be so what are the challenges you face now? Right, because presumably they're not the same as when you were in New York, by the sounds of it. But what are the challenges you face now as an up and coming leader?
Yeah, honestly, it's hard. That's a hard one. There's different politics, there's different structures. You're always going to have those anytime you're in a corporate position. I think my biggest challenge right now is balancing everything that I do outside of Disney with the very corporate aspect of the job. And with managing people, because I have some direct reports, I have to step back and see who's still in very, we'll call it societal mode, where, the job is the job, you are the job, and who's kind of more in their feelings, that we need to see them as a whole human and foster that. And then also connecting those people who are still very like, I am the job,
Yeah.
to their humanity, because that's how they're going to grow as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So let's move on to what you do outside of Disney then. All right. Because I know a little bit about it, but I'm eager to learn more. And I'm assuming that is more of your passion, right? Where your heart is.
That
Am
is
I right?
definitely the
Okay.
passion. I'm glad that I've been able to take some of that into Disney now, and that, corporate America is starting to transition to a more human aspect. So
Yes.
that's exciting to see. But yeah, that's definitely more the passion.
Okay. So tell me about those. First of all, I mean, you mentioned when we came on your top that you've got on. So tell me um share the story behind that.
Yeah. So I just started my second podcast. I finished my first one about 4 years ago. I
Mhm.
stopped doing that. So it's going to be called the High Viz Hoodie Podcast. And I will hopefully be launching that before the end of February. It's focusing on wellness specifically in construction. People in construction are 5 times more likely to have a fatal issue from suicide than from anything that they do on site. And, that includes guys that are up on tower cranes who are not tied off to anything because they're doing installs, people working in giant holes, putting in new infrastructure. Like, we don't work in safe environments. We're taught safety, and everyone focuses on visibility, bright colors. But the way that I'm looking at it is, for so long, we've been taught to be visible, but we've never been taught to be seen.
Mm. Yeah.
So So we're going to work on that. And obviously, it's a topic that's near and dear to me because I'm getting all teary
Yeah.
eyed. Uh, but coming from the industry, coming from construction, being part of that, where if you had any kind of emotion, you were wrong, you were weak, you were less than. I want to be able to bring that back to where people can feel okay being themselves. They can focus on things that are going to make them healthier and happier so that they can show up for everyone else in their life. And, not making the construction site such a kind of cold, egoic, and lonely place, because there is a lot of isolation
Yeah.
in construction as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because I would imagine that not many people see that, right, or understand that. Um,
Yeah, when I was doing all the research for it, interestingly enough, there is a program in England that they've started to focus on that, but the US doesn't have any of it.
really.
So we need to bring that.
Why do you think? Why do you think the emotion side, the human side of it, is not at the forefront in that? Is it is it because of sort of the macho image, if you like, of construction and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I'm sure
yeah,
that's the bulk of it. There's still, we call them, the cowboys of construction, where it's the old school firms that are led by generations of the same family, and it's common to go on construction sites and you've got to talk the talk and walk the walk in order to fit in. So there's a lot of that stereotype that needs to be broken. There's a lot of that kind of thinking that needs to be adjusted. I mean, when you start looking into just the metrics of productivity, of how likely it is that the same guys on one site are going to come back for another project, um, there's a lot of money to be made and saved in projects when you start caring about the people that are on them. Not to mention all the lawsuits that you avoid from injuries.
yeah, yeah, and so it's changing the mindset then, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that again that in the leadership training and coaching that I do both at Disney and outside of it is that's evident in all industries, right? But probably even
Yeah.
more so in construction because of the machoism, if that's a word.
Yeah.
Um,
We're just a little behind.
yeah, it's also in I see an appetite for growth and development in millennials and Gen Zs, right? They want to grow, they want to align with
Mm-hmm.
the purpose, they want to have that feeling that they actually make a difference, that they're valued, that
Yes.
they're heard, and so on at work.
Yes.
And then you've maybe got like senior executives that go, okay, we can see the value in this and we want to do it. And then, to be honest, I see a void in the middle, right? And that's the mindset that we need to overcome. And I
Yeah.
think again, it's not unique to any industry, right? I think it's maybe a generational thing. It's a subconscious sort of ingrained approach that we go, hey, we don't want to show our emotions because that is weakness, and it's not, as you quite rightly said. Showing your emotions, in all honesty, is a strength. And I'll be honest, I mean, I'm a Gen X, but I would say that as I was going through my leadership, early leadership career, even up to age 50, I didn't show my emotions, right? I locked that all up because, again, I was like, whatever's going on in my personal life, keep that separate. and work is work, right? And never
Mm-hmm.
the twains will meet. But it's wrong, right? Because you can't do that. You can't, you may think you're isolating one against the other or compartmentalizing one against the other, but you're not. Right. So I think the work you're doing there is worthwhile and is great. What would be, and again, I'm excited to hear your podcast when it comes out, and when you do that, obviously make sure you send me the link, and I'll attach it to this video and so on as well. But
Will do.
what would you say would be, I don't know, maybe the top two or three messages, or even one or two messages that you would really want to get across to somebody that is maybe feeling that they can't be themselves, right? That they're not being heard.
Mm. Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, there's always a way for you to honor yourself. And if it's just that you need to get it out and you don't necessarily have anyone you feel comfortable talking to, journaling is always a great option. Going on a hike to the top of a mountain and screaming it out,
Yeah.
another great option. And there's honestly so many different, I know, again, we're going to talk about antiquated thinking. Therapy used to be a dirty word, very dirty word. It's luckily turning a corner on that. And there's so many different types as well. If you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, there's text-based therapies. If you'd rather feel through it, there's somatic therapies, there's hypnosis.
Mhm.
Find a sound bath near you. Everyone there will be screaming or crying or whatever. You will not be counted as a weirdo. You will be among plenty of other weirdos, so you're fine. In
Well,
fact, I'm doing one in
you'll
a couple
realize that.
Sundays.
Yeah, I think you'll realize that you're not weird after all, right? If we're honest about it, I think the majority of people would benefit from
Oh yeah,
counseling, right? Or just talking things out. And yet we feel, the reason I think there was a stigma about it historically is because we feel that if we seek that or we need that we're in the minority, and actually we're not. We're in the majority. I'm of
yeah,
a mindset. I mean, I actually had some counseling in 2004, right? So I was 38 years old, right, at that time, and I had the same as you. When it was suggested to me that I go, I was like, I don't need that. That's like woo woo. I don't need to be doing that. But it lit something inside of me, right? And I realized, and I went, wow, I believe that everybody in their mid to late 20s should go and counsel, because we go through a lot. Let's face it, the education system, whether it's the schools or the college system, doesn't teach us how to think, right?
no,
It teaches us to memorize things and learn things so
yeah,
we can pass tests, um, and things that we're probably never going to use again. So what's the point? Um, so I think we should get that, because we don't teach people to think about who they are and what's important
yeah,
to them, what's their purpose, what's their why, for want of a better description. And I think that counselling, talking it through, whether it's an official counsellor, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a discussion group, right, of like-minded people, join those things. I agree with you, and seek
yeah,
those out, because you're not on an island unless you keep it all within you. Then you're on an island.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I think the other one is get outside your comfort zone.
for sure.
Um, Honestly, I think that was the biggest thing with moving to California personally.
Yeah.
Because, East Coast, Jersey, you got tight knit little Italian groups. That's like, what do you think of when you think Jersey Sopranos?
Right.
It's true. So,
Or Jersey Shore.
getting, I was trying to avoid that. um, but I mean, yeah, same general thought.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, only one of those people was actually from New Jersey. So,
My
uh,
my wife is from New Jersey, and she told me that when I said that. So I was like, okay. I never watched it. I just remember like one person on there, and I was like, yeah, that's not who you want to be. So anyway, so
no, Sopranos is better. um, but yeah, getting completely outside of that was like, oh, I have to, I have the opportunity to decide how I really feel about that and what I prefer between these things and what I would rather do and how my view of that situation is, instead of just absorbing what was
mm,
around me and going with what what my family thought, what my friends thought, what the people around me thought. So even if, it's a 2 week sabbatical by yourself somewhere, just get away from everything, get
Yeah,
completely outside of your comfort zone and feel what it's like to do things that are screaming yes for you.
yeah. Yeah, no, they're good tips. I mean, I've never been a journaler, and someone suggested to me doing a journal. I was like, oh, really? I did it for 2 years, right? Every day. I say religiously, right? I did it every day. And it got to a point where then I could do it in my mind, right? Without actually
Mm-hmm.
physically writing it down. But I believe I had to do that in the first place. And so then I was doing that sort of mental journaling, which is also like meditation, right? So thinking about
Mm-hmm.
that and doing that. And then I think a big part of it is health and wellness, right? Health and wellness physically, but also mentally. And the thing that kept coming back to me was the airline example with the oxygen
Your
mask,
mask
where
first.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can't help other people until you help yourselves. And it was like, okay, you have to be aware of who you are and what you truly feel and what's important to you. And then you almost have to, for me, I had to almost like fall in love with myself again
Mm-hmm.
and be true to myself. And then other people can see that and then they will respect you and everything for who you are. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that again is probably one of the biggest lessons that I had is again, mentally get healthy, physically get healthy. I know you do other things with like health and wellness. So
Yep.
talk a little bit about that because we're coming up to like 25 minutes and we have an amazing conversation and I don't want to end it, but I also want to be respectful of your time as well. So
Yeah, all good. I mean, we can do this again sometime too.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm an alternative health and wellness coach, AFSA certified, so gone through all the required paperwork as well, um, on both sides, and a cacao practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, a certified sound healer, all the things. I like to be able to help people where they are in a way that connects with them. Um, and you talking about being true to yourself, it sounds weird for me to say, I want to be able to connect with other people where they are, but that is being true to myself, where, going back to that we'll say divine feminine, I want to be able to nurture, be able to guide, be able to
mhm,
teach, and a lot of that is the feminine qualities. um, you know Getting healthy, being connected can mean so many things for so many different people. When you're saying getting fit mentally, getting fit physically, it doesn't mean that you're supermodel shape and
oh
you're,
no, no,
the
yeah,
dying to be skinny thing.
no,
Because I don't want somebody to hear that and go, oh God, I have to go work out all like crazy. Like, no,
no,
no, no. Just find 20 minutes to go outside and take a walk, get some fresh air, some
yeah,
sunlight. With the mental health, meditation is great. Journaling is great. Honestly, sometimes the best thing that I can do is sit down and watch an episode of Ted Lasso because it just
I love
brings
that.
me out of that, like,
Yeah, I actually got for Christmas one of the books I got was like Leadership by Lasso or something like that. I haven't read it yet, but it's
yes.
yeah. So and I think you're right because there's the unhealthy side of trying to chase those like supermodel skinny or
Yeah,
be like huge and buff is that's not what healthy is, right? That's going
no.
to the other extreme, right? And so
Right.
somewhere in the middle there's a ground that is right for you and that's going to be different for each and every one of us.
Yes.
But again, it's being true to yourself and being happy, and not doing it because you feel you have to do it because you want to do it, right? um, and that again is I think something that I encourage people to look at with what they're doing professionally, right, as well as personally. But I want an ideal world, right? I want everybody to want to go to work and do the job they do rather than feel that they have to just to get a paycheck, right? And I know some people will say, well, that's idealistic and we have to do it. And yeah, it may be, but guess what? If we don't strive for it, we're never going to get it, right?
Exactly.
So let's pull together and work towards that. You're right. We should definitely do this again. And you certainly when you've got your podcast up and running, we'll come
Yeah.
on and we'll talk about that again. And I'd love to. well, I'm going to follow your journey anyway because you're helping me with training on the West Coast starting next month, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And if anybody is watching, listening, if you're you're mobile or whatever, if you've got any questions for either myself or Megan, just put them in the comments, and we'll come back and we'll answer them. Right. And again, subscribe to this YouTube channel and click that notification. And then when Megan's podcast launches, we'll all subscribe to that and we'll follow that too. Megan, I appreciate you joining. I know it's early on a Sunday morning as we're recording this over there, but anything, any sort of final comments that you want to leave the audience with?
You did mention, sometimes it's not what you want to do, so go towards what you want to do, not what you have to do. Sometimes it is hard to get started. So sometimes, yes, force yourself to do something for 10 minutes. If it still doesn't feel good, stop. But yes, sometimes you do need to force yourself to start.
Right.
That's all I got.
No, I agree. And again, I know I said you'd have final word, but I'm always leaving the final word. But the thing I think I would add to that is you're right. And what you got to think about is like, why do you want to do it? Right. Why is this thing important to you? Because if you can't think of a reason why it's important to you, then it's not going to work. Right. But if there's a reason and you hone in on the reason why you want to do it, that will help you overcome those moments where you go, I don't want to do it. Right. Think beyond that and like, why do you want to do it? What will it feel like when you do it? But either like, and again, there's the instant gratification, there's a long-term payoff, right? You may not get instant gratification from doing something, but think about the long-term payoff. And as long as the long-term gain is greater than the short-term pain, then go for it, right? And persist.
I feel like the next episode has to be on goal setting now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we can do that, and actually, we can maybe come on there and talk about like your goals for 2025, and then every now and again we'll touch base and see how you're doing with those, right? So that we
sounds great.
Yeah, cool. Well, Megan, listen, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to following your growth and your leadership journey in the coming months and years.
Thank you so much, Chris. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.